The description for the following discount codes. I've had loads and loads of questions or comments in the comments, questions in the comments, about what this is attached to my sim racing rig here. Some people have correctly guessed it's a tactile transducer, and other people have no idea about what they are at all. So what I'll do is quickly explain what tactile transducers are. I have done a review of these. These are the Reckhorn BS200i, BS for base shaker, which is another phrase for tactile transducer. So I'll explain briefly what they do, then I'll give you a close-up of how it's installed on here. I'll talk to you about, it's going to be like, this isn't going to be a step-by-step or a how-to, it's going to be more of an overview of how you install, wire up and use this sort of tactile transducer setup. But it would be a stupidly long video if I was to literally do step by step for the installation of this, the wiring, Soundcard side of things, the software setup. It would be huge. So I may do a tutorial on the software and some other bits separately, but this video will be kind of an all-round overview, and hopefully for those of us who are a little bit tech savvy, should be enough for you to kind of figure out the bits in between yourself. So let's just reposition the camera, because laying here on the floor isn't the most comfortable, and I'll explain what they're for, and then we'll take a look at the individual parts that sort of bring this all together and make it work. So very quickly, what are tactile transducers? Why do we want them, and how do they work? A tactile transducer, or a base shaker, is essentially a speaker but without the paper cone, or whatever the cone might be made of these days, graphite or aluminium, all sorts. But yeah, so it's the magnet, it's the voice coil, and it works in a similar fashion to a speaker, obviously, in that it is fed a sound frequency and it attempts to reproduce that sound frequency. But we don't want to hear anything on our sim racing rigs. We want to feel tactile feedback or forces. So lumps and bumps in the road, undulations, thuds perhaps as we land if we've done a jump in dirt rally, rumble strips, curbs, things like that. Now I've got one of these transducers, or base shakers, or speakers without a cone, on each corner of my rig, of my cockpit. Now this is to replicate what each of the four wheels of whatever car I'm driving is feeling, the lumps and bumps it's going over, curbs, etc., suspension, feedback, things like that. And it is done using sound frequencies. So like a big thud, if maybe the car lands after a jump where all four wheels hit the ground, would be a lower frequency sound than if you perhaps ran over, I don't know, a small pothole or a stone, if the level of detail goes down to things like stones, which it may do in some titles. And like rumble strips, for example, at the edge of racetracks will be a higher frequency sound again than perhaps a nasty impact if you smashed your wheel into a bank as you went round a rally stage again. So there'll be a different frequency used to represent each type of situation, each type of surface. And that's what these transducers do. They will simply vibrate, they're bolted to the rig, and they'll vibrate based on the telemetry coming back out of the game. Now for me, tactile transducers they're almost a must. Once you've had them, you really can't go back to being without them, because the game just feels flat and lifeless. It would almost be like going from having a force feedback wheel to a non-force feedback wheel, where it rotates and you can use it to steer, but you don't get any feedback at all about what your steering wheels are doing. And by steering wheels, I mean the wheels that steer on the vehicle, not steering wheels. Without any of that feedback coming through your steering wheel. That was a confusing sentence, wasn't it? So yes, for me, once you've had it, you can't go back. And in some ways, well, not in some ways, in almost all ways, I prefer it to the sort of commercially available motion solutions we have available to us at the moment. Aside from super high-end stuff that's literally hundreds of thousands of pounds, you know, the motion solutions we can get in my opinion and experience, don't provide as much useful information as what a properly tuned and set up tactile transducer system does. So that's what it does. It lets you feel more about what's going on with your vehicle on a per wheel basis. In this particular instance, you can run a single transducer under your seat if that's all your budget allows. You can run a pair, one for the front, one for the rear. You can run 4, you can run 6, because you can add, so in addition to the 4 wheels, you could add another 2, one under the seat, one under the steering wheel, or perhaps one under the pedals there, and you would run mono effects through those. So rather than individual wheel feedback, because that wouldn't make sense, would it, if they're in the middle of the car, one under your bum, one under your steering wheel, one under your pedals. You would use those perhaps for engine vibrations, or maybe a thud when you're changing gear, if that's something you like to use, or for when a car lands, you know, on all 4 wheels in a rally stage, you could have all 6 give you a big thud and really feel what's going on. You know, these are an alternative to things like the butt kickers, which tend to be used solo because they're quite big, and you know there'll be a central mount in a lot of instances that you'll bolt them to. You can of course run them in this configuration I have here, but they're very expensive. These are much cheaper than a butt kicker, but then a lot of the butt kickers come with integrated amplifiers, I think, or do you have to buy them separately? I actually can't remember now. But with this, you're just buying the transducer itself. I think they're about 50 or 60 pounds. There'll be a link in the description if you want. And yeah, you then have to buy a separate amplifier to run them off of. But we'll talk about amps in a minute. So yeah, I'll grab the camera now and show you the transducer where it's fitted. In fact, I'll show you 2 of them because there's 2 we can see on this side. And then I'll show you the sound card that I use to run these and explain how that works, and then yeah, I'll waffle through the rest of the crap as well. So let me get that camera. So this, as I mentioned, is a Reckhorn BS200i. You can see it simply has 2 poles, just like any speaker that you would connect, you know, your positive and your negative to, and it has, I've got it held on by 3 Allen bolts that you can see there, and there. And these just go straight into T-nuts, you know, in the slots in the aluminium profile here. Now, 2 out of the 3 lined up perfectly. This one here, I just had to get a drill and elongate the hole, I think, up a little bit, just to facilitate that fitting. In fact, sorry, let me correct myself there. I've used M8 bolts. The holes are M6, so I opened them all up 2 mil. Now that's purely because I had M8 T-nuts to go in here. I could have just bought M6 T-nuts and not had to open these holes up, although this one would still have needed elongating a little bit to get it in the correct position. But they're literally perfect for bolting onto aluminium profile rigs. There's the other one over there on this side. So as you can see, I've effectively got a rear wheel and a front wheel. And then I have the same on the other side of the rig over there. Oh, and some of you will probably spot the BD8 shifter in the background there, currently being tested. And what a little beauty that is, I can tell you already. But yeah, so that's how they're attached. Super, super simple. You know, grab yourself 3 T-nuts and a drill, bosh, simply, you know, fix it on. Now, the wires, I've actually got them running in my channels here. They then go to an amplifier. But before we talk about the amplifier, because that's up there and I'll stand up for that, I'll just show you the sound card I'm using. I don't know how easy this is going to be to see because it's buried at the back here, but it's just, yeah, not easy to see at all. It's just a cheapo USB sound card, and you can see there's 2 3.5mm to RCA cables coming out. I'm using my front and rear channels. This is a 7.1 sound card, and then there's a USB cable at the back of it that goes into the computer. Now, those 3.5mm to RCAs then go up into my 2 amplifiers that I've got there. Now, you don't need 2 amplifiers. You can have a 5.1 or 7.1 surround sound amplifier, and that will have more than enough channels, because obviously you only need 4 channels, 1 for each transducer. The reason I've got 2 is because I'm also running, there's a speaker here, a speaker over the other side there, I'm using this amplifier to run both those two speakers, which is the sound for my sim rig, and then one pair of transducers, and then I've got the amplifier on top running the other pair of transducers. If I didn't have any speakers over here, I could have just used my surround sound amp to run all four of the tactile transducers. So yeah, that's what, USB to USB sound card, sound card to amplifiers, amplifiers to transducers. Hopefully that was pretty clear. So the next thing I'll show you very briefly, because again this could be a very long video, is the software that I use to control all this, to take the telemetry from whatever sim it is I'm in and then turn that into the sound that's sent from the sound card to the amplifiers and then from the amplifiers to the transducers. So let me hop over to my PC and we'll have a quick goosey at that. There's a few different software choices. Now I started out using Sim Commander or SimVibe, it's one of the same thing really these days, and it's quite an expensive bit of software. I think it was £65 or something fairly strong like that, and it's not very user friendly. In fact, to be honest, it's a real ball ache to use. And for some reason, about 6 months ago, it just stopped outputting sound to my sound card. Now, I don't know why this is. It just stopped. I couldn't get it to work. So I ended up getting SimHub, which is actually completely free. You are welcome to donate, in which case you will get a more featured version of the software, but it does work just fine, the free version on its own. And to be honest, I should have just got this in the first place because it's way cheaper and it's easier to use. And so far it seems more reliable. Now, you do get occasionally, and this is probably a Windows problem, sometimes, so you'll have set up your sound card in the software, you choose what sound card you want to use, and you set up all your output effects and everything, it's all hunky-dory, and then one day you load up SimHub and you're in chosen sim, and there's nothing coming out your tactile transducers, and you're like, oh, what's going on now? And what's happened is, for some reason, the sound card that you chose, which for me is called USB 3 sound card, is just no longer selected, and all your output channel settings are gone. Your effects and what have you, so like jump landings, road impacts, road vibration, RPMs, that's all still set as it should be. It's just the sound card channel outputs seem to reset back to like off. So it takes maybe 2 minutes to put them back on again. But this just seems to happen. I think it happens after I do a graphics driver update, but I've not really paid too much attention to be sure. And you would think that sounds odd, why doing a graphics driver update affect your sound card outputs? Well, it's because graphics cards also have sound outputs on them and show up as a sound card as well. So I think that somehow messes it up. But anyway, that's just one of those things that I can't seem to stop happening, but that I thought I'd just mention. So let's have we'll have a very quick look. Again, this isn't a step-by-step. Let's just get some screen capture on the go here, which doesn't seem to be working. Why is that not working? Oh, there we go, wrong button. Right, so yeah, this is SimHub. As I say, I'm not going to do a step-by-step. It shows you a load of supported games on the front. On the left-hand side, you've got your various different output configurations. It can run dashboards, Arduinos, shake it motors, bass shakers, blah, 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 blah. Bass shakers is what I'm using for this particular configuration, and this here is a list of all the different effects that you can have come out of your transducers. Now let's just go. The first one I've got, you see the ones I've got on are in green here. So I'm only using 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm using 4. Yeah, 4 different effects on here, which is jump landings, as it sounds when the vehicle jumps and lands, hits the ground, road impacts, road vibration. So that's basically like road texture. It's another way of putting that. What's going on, with each wheel on the road, and then engine RPM. I have a little sort of engine rumble at idle, and again, kind of when I'm bouncing off the limiter at the top end of things as well. And this is all configurable at your different frequencies, 34 to 50 hertz, plus or minus 40 hertz, different volumes for each effect. This big green block shows that it does it across all of the transducers. This one here, where we've got 4 individual smaller blocks, shows that there's an effect per wheel. So as each wheel, you know, feels different. Well, it says it here, in fact, localized road vibration based on suspension telemetry. So as each wheel is moving up and down, you know, it takes a telemetry based on what the suspension is doing and passes it out to the relevant tactile transducer. Similar thing for road impacts, bumps and wheel impacts on the road, so lumps and bumps basically. Road rumble provides localized rumble for curbs and grass. For Dirt Rally 2, this doesn't seem to work, and road impacts and road vibration seem to be the 2 effects that give you what you would have here. So this will be a per sim basis. Some put out different telemetry to others. So, but yeah, this is just a quick look at the software and the sort of effects you can have come out of your transducers there. So let's just turn that screen capture off. No, that didn't work. Why is my screen capture not working today? Okay, there we go, off. Weird. Things just don't work sometimes. But yeah, so that's kind of like my overview of my tactile transducer setup, which, you know, quite a lot of you have asked me about. We'll just reiterate, we'll go back through it all. I've got 4 of those Reckhorn BS200i's, 1 on each corner representing each wheel, and what each wheel is doing in the sim then translates to a vibration or a rumble, varying frequencies based on how deep the vibration should be, or whether it should be a higher pitched, you know, sort of tapping or rumbling. I don't really know how to describe that best, but you kind of know what I mean. So we've got our 4 transducers. They then go back to 2 amplifiers for my particular setup, or 1 multi-channel amp. You need 4 channels for this particular setup. And then you have your RCA cables that will be in the back of the amplifier. So let's say I'm using the front and rear outputs on my amp. You know, front left, front right, rear left, rear right. Again, those of you familiar with amplifiers will know exactly what I mean. And then the other end of those cables is your 3.5mm jacks that go into my cheapo USB sound card that I got off Amazon. I'll link to one in the description if I can find exactly the same one. Into the front and rear channel outputs of that sound card. And then that comes back to the PC over USB. And the software I'm using here, SimHub, you choose that sound card as your output, and you assign each transducer to each channel. So the front, left and right would be the front, left and right wheels. The rear, left and right channels would be the rear, left and right wheels. And then you spend time tweaking away to your heart's content to get all these effects how you want them. And one tip I'll give you if you are going to have a go at this: tune 1 effect at a time. Don't go through the list turning on 82 different effects and then try and set them up, because all you will have is a big mess of vibrations going on underneath you, and you'll have no clue what anything's doing. Turn on 1 effect at a time. So for example, road impacts maybe. Tune that so that when you are driving and you hit something on the road, it feels how you want it to feel. And then once you've finished tuning that effect, turn that one off, turn the next one you want to tune on, maybe road vibration, jump landings, whatever, and do it 1 step at a time. That's the biggest tip I can give you. That way, once you've tuned them all individually and you know they all behave and feel how you want them to, you can then turn the others back on 1 at a time and see how they stack up all together. Because what you don't want is a giant mess of rumbles and vibrations which tell you absolutely nothing and don't help or enhance your experience in any way. But yeah, that is the tactile setup I ran on my GT Amiga Prime. It would fit any aluminium profile rig that has the same size side pieces of aluminium profile. I don't actually know what they are off the top of my head because I haven't measured them. But the smaller profile rigs available, obviously they wouldn't bolt straight to. You could make some adapter plates or perhaps drill some holes. You could probably drill some holes, yeah, in a narrower layout on that Reckhorn transducer. So rather than having them like 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here, you could come down that curve and just have like 2 here and 1 here or something like that, so that it will still bolt to the thinner aluminium profile rigs that are out there. That would work as well, because all we've got to do is hold it hard against your rig so that there's no vibration between the transducer and the rig. It needs to be solid against it and pass that vibration through to you. The other thing is, in a perfect world, I would have my rig sat on rubber isolating feet. Now these BS200s do come with little rubber isolating feet, because what you want is the vibration to stay within our cockpits, and so there's no wasted energy going elsewhere. In my case, it's on casters, because I have to wheel the whole thing in and out to swap hardware around for reviews and whatnot. And when I'm racing, this whole floor, because it's wooden, vibrates, along with my retro gaming stuff on the side here. Whoever's sat on the sofa's feeling it. Even, you know, in the bedroom next door you can feel it. So there's a lot of wasted energy from those transducers spent vibrating my whole house and all the bits and bobs I've got in it. If you can put your rig on rubber feet to isolate, then you won't have to work your transducers as hard or turn your amplifiers up as loud, or your single amplifier if you've just got one. So that's a little tip as well, but sadly something I can't do. But yeah, I think that's probably a unnecessarily long overview, but it's kind of like it's not a step-by-step, but hopefully there's enough information there to perhaps get people up and running. They know, you need the BS200i's, you know they bolt on, you know you need a USB sound card and a 4-channel amp, and you know you need SimHub or Sim Commander, and then you can kind of figure out the rest yourself. You know, as I say, maybe I'll do a tuning guide for SimHub or something at another point. But the actual plugging in of the amplifier to the sound card is really very simple. As I say, front and rear outputs on the sound card into whatever channels you want on your amplifier. If it's a surround sound amp, use the front and rear, channels on the amp itself. Or if you've got 2 stereo amplifiers, you've just got, a pair going to one amp and a pair going to the other amp, front and rear. It's all very logical, at least I hope it is. And then you'll match your volumes on those to make sure all 4 transducers are putting out the same level. You don't want the front ones being mega loud and the rear ones being super quiet or anything weird like that. But there's a lot of tweaking to be done here, so I could waffle on for ages. And some people like waffle and some people don't. Anyway, enough waffle. Thank you for watching, and as always, take it easy.